For many LGBTIQ individuals in Botswana, using public bathroom is not a simple routine act, but a moment filled with anxiety, fear, and uncertainty, as their gender identity and expression SOGIE often expose them to judgment, harassment, or exclusion in spaces that are meant to be safe and accessible for all. According to 𝐔𝐬𝐢𝐭𝐲 individual, the introduction of gender-neutral bathrooms in public spaces is essential. 𝐔𝐬𝐢 noted that individuals, including gay men who express themselves in more feminine ways, are often subjected to negative attitudes when using gendered facilities. He added that gender-neutral bathrooms will help reduce stigma and challenge harmful gender-based assumptions, creating safer and more inclusive spaces for everyone.
What I think is we don't have gender neutral bathrooms in our country, right? But I think that it would be a good thing to have in our country in the sense that sometimes when you are a queer person, like let's say a feminine gay man, when they walk into male restrooms, they're often given funny looks or attitude. It's more of like, are you lost? Are you in a different bathroom that you're supposed to be in? So I think that if we were to have gender neutral bathrooms, then we would deal away with attitudes, with violence. Because there's been instances where people are violated in these bathrooms, where you walk in, you're an intersex person. Outside, you look like you are a man, but you're not a man. And then when people find out in those bathrooms, normally, especially at clubs, then it always ends up in violence and stuff. And I think that maybe if we could just have, because I don't want to take away from what people want for themselves as a society, but I think that we can have both. We can have male, female, and gender neutral bathrooms, and in that sense it will be inclusive of everyone, since that we don't leave anyone behind.
For his part, Skipper Mogapi, founder of the Rainbow Identity Association, which deals with intersex people, he emphasized the need for gender-neutral bathrooms in public spaces. He revealed that the organization has received reports from some of its intersex members who have been chased out of bathrooms due to others questioning their or perceiving their sex, or because gender identity does not align with expectations.
Public space is where we spend most of time in, and there is need for neutral bathrooms, and we have received reports from our members regarding use of public bathrooms where someone may be chased from the bathroom because maybe someone know their perceived sex, or because they identify themselves with a particular gender. So for safety in public spaces, there is need for neutral bathrooms, and this is what we are advocating for as an organization, to say that there is need, as much as there is bathrooms that are for male, female, and people with disability. Although some people consider us as people with disability, but at times you find that you really need to use a bathroom, and the disabled bathrooms are locked, and you cannot use the male bathrooms. For example, if you go into male bathrooms, in most spaces you find that there is urinal, and at that particular point your urethra is short, and therefore it means you need a toilet rather than urinal. So that's why I'm saying that there is need for the bathroom that is neutral, to allow an intersex person to use the bathroom that they feel more comfortable in. At times when you identify as female and you use the female bathrooms, and some people will look at you as if you are weird, and this on its own makes trans and intersex people uncomfortable in using public toilets.
The head of policy and legal advocacy at 𝐔𝐬𝐢𝐬, Laune van Voren, stated that as society moves towards greater gender inclusivity, the introduction of gender-neutral bathrooms is an important step. He noted that such facilities will allow individuals to access public spaces without having to assert or explain their gender identity, particularly in everyday situations like using public bathrooms.
If we're moving in the direction of being a gender-inclusive society, then just having gender-neutral bathrooms is one of the ways that we can do that. That people don't have to assert themselves, their gender identification or orientation, particularly when using a public bathroom. I think it's the same principle. Look, most homes have one bathroom, but you have several people living in the home with different identities. But I became a woman because my sister was using the bathroom before me.
𝐑𝐞𝐚𝐥𝐢𝐭𝐲, founder of Success Capital, emphasized the urgent need for gender-neutral bathrooms in public spaces as a key step towards inclusivity. 𝐶𝐬𝐢𝐬 highlighted that access to safe and non-discriminatory facilities is a fundamental human rights issue, particularly for transgender, non-binary, and intersex individuals who often face stigma, harassment, or exclusion when using gendered bathrooms.
Gender-neutral bathrooms, as Success Capital, we must acknowledge that it still holds a colonial legacy. And we say colonial legacy because this is a narrative, obviously, in many Western countries where I guess the basic fundamental human rights have somewhat been respected legislatively, where there has been some form of social acceptance to a point where people can now come and advocate for gender-neutral bathrooms. I think in the African context, particularly even in Botswana, we're still not there socially, and it's important to just sort of recognize that, especially in a climate where, for example, U.S. executive orders have been very clear on what gender is, limiting within the binaries of sex, male and female, and then also recognizing that there was still a UK Supreme Court judgment that spoke about women being identified as cisgender women and not trans or gender diverse women. And so this is why for us it's still very much a Western colonial conversation, and hasn't necessarily impacted many experiences. I mean, we've found where there are, femme trans individuals or, feminine expressive individuals where they're able to use women's bathrooms in many instances because they pass, right? Whereas there can be conflict that can come as a result of someone who might not necessarily pass, who maybe isn't taking hormonal therapy. And so I think for us it's important to recognize that it's a nuanced conversation, and if we're to think about it from a policy framework, it's about leaving no one behind. It's about creating safe spaces so that everyone can be comfortable enough and have the privacy that they need when needing to use ablutions. And so I think for us it's just recognizing that yes, gender affirmative public health spaces, public transit spaces need added safety, and in many instances it's ensuring that the infrastructure is accommodating. And so for us, I think it's a more intersectional approach to say, how do we ensure that those who are left behind can be included in the built infrastructure, in the social programming, and also more importantly, so that there's a culture of human rights literacy for the public to understand and recognize that there are gender diverse individuals, and that in many instances, so for example, some toilets are unisex. So when you're on an airplane, the toilets are used by both men, women, and trans individuals, if they are. When you're looking at, these portable toilets, in many instances, they can be used by both men and women, and trans individuals, if they are. So I think the reality is it's not about trying to exclude individuals, but it's about acknowledging that there are many instances where everyone is able to use an ablution. And I think for us, it's recognizing that if we're saying we're leaving no one behind, the infrastructure must accordingly accommodate everyone.
Story compiled by Lami Lucas.